Well, it's tough in law enforcement because you're expected to be tough. You're expected to be thick-skinned a lot of times. At least that's, the culture in which law enforcement lives. If you start talking about being depressed or you start talking about having those kind of issues, you may feel like if you say those kind of things in our environment, that someone will consider that a weakness. Anybody, anywhere, whether it's in law enforcement or otherwise, they need to understand is that the unhealthy thing to do is not to talk about it, is not to let people know that there are things going on. It happens to everybody. Everybody has had a friend or family member that has either had suicidal ideologies, has committed suicide, or who has dealt with depression, or has had some kind of mental health crisis in their life. My father suffered from depression that led to some substance abuse issues that he dealt with for most of his life. And I think it was that conversation of talking about it and identifying it and saying it for what it was that really was the light bulb that turned on for my father, led him to getting some help, and from that came his sobriety. And from his sobriety, he went on to mentor many, many other people. And at his funeral, there were people that stood up and testified that my father had saved hundreds of lives by leading them into sobriety. And I think if it had not been for him dealing with his depression, that he would have continued to have a life of substance abuse, of suicidal ideologies, instead of a life that went on to serve other people and help get them on the right path. People think, okay, if somebody's going to commit suicide, they're going to leave behind a note that explains everything. That rarely happens. When it does, sometimes it explains things, but most of the time it leaves more questions. Depression that leads to suicide leads to depression for others. Do the brave thing. Do the right thing. Speak up about it. It could save your life. It could save depression that may fall upon your family members or your friends because you do something that's drastic that you may not have otherwise done if you just were given an opportunity to put things in perspective.